We're going to go ahead, before I turn it over to this amazing and incredibly talented lineup of individuals next to me. Again, we like to just honor those that are making outsized contributions or big contributions to cybersecurity locally in all 30 cities that we go to. So thank all of you for being here. A huge round of applause, by the way, before we get any further, to our sponsors who have always ensured that we're able to put on the best and continue to improve every year. So a big thanks to them for their time and support. As I call you, this will be for everyone wearing those yellow lanterns. As I call your name, we have a little certificate and a little token of appreciation in here for you. So just come up, if you're in the room. I know cyber never sleeps, threats never stop. So, some people I know have had to maybe had a little earlier in the day and may not be here, but they'll be here in spirit. So we can give them a little round of applause, but we'll make sure that you get a little something from us. So to start with, we have Tim Skiles from Iowa Falls State Bank, CISO. Tim? Very good. Blake Scott from Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines, IT Audit Lead. All right. Chad Leeper, Capital City Fruit, Director of Information Systems. Okay, well, Chad here in spirit. He was here at one point today. Robert Fuller from Toggle, CIO. All right. Rick Fontana from Casey's, a GRC analyst. There's Rick. Cheers, my friend. Monica Fennelly from Mom's Meals, Information Security GRC lead. All right, here in spirit, Monica. Yeah, all are deserving, yeah. Amy Curran from Casey's Pizza, IT security analyst. All right, Amy. We can bring it to you, that's fine. Brian Cupp from Onero RX, IT director. Joe Bastarash from BCD Travel, VP of Information Security. All right. I got it perfect. That's why I paused for a second. Everyone deserves that as best I can. Jacob Barnes from Mahaska Bottling Company, CTO. He left. Okay, well, he was here and here in spirit. Janine Lowry from Citizens Community Credit Union, Director of IT. There she is. Layla McNeil from Bank Iowa, Information Security Officer. Oh, photo op. Rebecca Matheson, Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines, Information Security Manager. All right. Joe Russell from BH Management, IT Engineering Manager, right up front. Abby Williams, Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, Senior Cybersecurity Engineer. Drew Wise from Timberland Manufacturing, IT Support Specialist. There we go. And then this brings me to my esteemed panel. So first up we have Lorna Waggoner, ecfirst Director of Training and Certification. Marc Johnson from Impact Advisors, CISO Director, vCISO, vCIO. I always love doing those in rapid succession, Marc. Welcoming back to the stage for the second time today, Rob LaMagna-Reiter from WoodmenLife, Vice President, CISO, and our keynote speaker from earlier, my friend. Again, who will be moderating this panel. And then also, we were lucky enough to have from our sponsor partner, Contrast, David Lindner, who was with us earlier for his presentation, also agreed to stick around and sit on this panel. So a big round of applause again for our home state hero. Thanks for being here, David. So Rob, this is now your show. Our CISO panel has begun. I think they've heard enough of me talking for a while. So take us through securing the future, CISO insights and industry leaders discussing cyber threats, current cyber threats, and strategic defense practices. A big round of applause for them taking the time to be with us to close the day.
Good afternoon. I'm excited you all have decided to stick around. We'll kick things off with some brief introductions for the panelists so you know a little bit about their backgrounds and where they're coming from as we're answering some questions, and then we'll hop into some rapid fire questioning, and then we'll have some open Q&A from the audience. We'll make things pretty informal here. So we'll kick it off. Marc, do you want to start? We'll come down this way.
Certainly. So I like to say I'm a recovering CIO. I've come to the dark side. I'm happy with that. But no, nonetheless, I've grown up through the industry in different roles and the like, and risk really is my passion in mitigating it. So certainly have various different roles that I like to call on, but certainly here to profess my passion.
Thank you. I'm Lorna Waggoner. I have been with ecfirst for 25 years. I teach a 2-day HIPAA class, so I am really hip on HIPAA, and I'm obsessed with it. I will be 100 years old still talking about HIPAA. I guess can't help it. It's never going to go away. We all have to do it. We are also a high trust assessor, so I'm certified in high trust. And for the last 6 years, we've worked with getting things ready to be a CMMC assessor for the Department of Defense. So when it comes to compliance and governance, I am your girl. But I just am passionate about it. So I'm glad you're passionate about your part, too. That's good.
I'm David Lindner. I'm the CISO at Contrast Security. I've been in AppSec for the better part of 25 years. My first real job, though, was writing PL1 code on a mainframe. Anyone? Thanks. And they decided that the better corn state needed to be here with all these Nebraskans. So that's why I'm here. Thanks.
I was going to ask Iowa or Iowa State, but I'm going to skip that question. All right, and I do have to give a plug, Lorna. I've actually personally went through the ecfirst HIPAA training several years ago myself.
Hi.
So I can attest at the quality and the education. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And then speaking of that, we'll start off with Lorna with the first question.
Oh, great.
I know. All right, we'll take it nice and easy. When you look at the cybersecurity or information security landscape in 2025, all the buzz, all the things we have to do on a normal basis, what do you think is most underserved, or like the area we're not focusing enough on? We always hear about the things that we should be focusing on, and in your professional opinion, what are we just not spending enough time on?
Explaining it. I think we need to keep it simple. I think we talk about MFA and all these acronyms, and people don't understand it. I think we need to really make it simple. You know, all these regulations are the same, except different. I mean, all of them have access control, all of them have training and awareness training and staff training, all of them have incident response, and they never change. Over the years, HIPAA's never changed. But what has changed is the world. So what changes is these hackers out there. They get smarter, so you have to get smarter with them. But that doesn't change the regulations. And I think if people understand that, right now they're talking about the security rule for HIPAA, and it's, you know, it's not final yet, blah, blah, blah. But they're just saying, do what we told you to do back in 2005 with the security rule, and now you're going to have to attest to it. So that hasn't changed, that you have to do a risk analysis. So I think if we could keep it simple and not get into the weeds, I think it would be more accepting. And I loved what you said about using your brain. HIPAA's logical, and all these regulations are logical. I mean, everybody always says money, oh, it's going to cost money, and well, you know, it costs money for rubber gloves and masks, but do you want your doctor to do surgery on you without using rubber gloves and masks? Heck no, there are some things we just have to pay for. So I think we need to make it easier.
Well, can I actually throw a follow-up over here to David? I'm curious, within your particular vertical and expertise, you mentioned you've been in AppSec for quite a while. I mean, what Lorna said, does that apply, does that resonate, or is there a different twist or take from what you've seen when you're talking with both customers and the threats that you're helping folks resolve?
Oh, it definitely resonates. We are almost opposed to change because we're used to doing what we've been doing for 25 years. And I don't know why that is. I have thoughts around that. I think there's an aspect of self-preservation. I think there's an aspect of I need to keep my job. Honestly, I don't know why we're so opposed to change when we know things aren't working. And we're just okay with firefighting and burning our teams out. It's time. It will come to a point where it'll be kind of too late and things will kind of fall off a cliff. But it's something about the security and AppSec specifically, we don't like to change. And we're trying to kind of figure that out. So yeah, I definitely resonate with your thoughts.
Okay. Throwing it over to Marc, I'm going to do a slightly different twist on the question because you have the unique role where you're advising multiple verticals and clients of different types. So, building on that trend, are there successes or challenges that you're seeing some of your clients face more or less? And, do you think that what we're discussing about the human element, would that help or accelerate some of the things that they're working on?
Absolutely. So I will piggyback on a couple different things, not only from your presentation, what Lorna said, et cetera. We need to speak plainly. We need to quit with the techie talk and the acronyms when we're expressing what risk means to the organization so that the rest of the business can understand us, right? We need to certainly help them understand us, and then more importantly, we need to understand them. We can't be the department of no. We have to be the department of yes, but in a secure way, right? And then I'll kind of flip that a little bit to say the other side of it, it really is there are too many third parties that are affecting us today, and we're not concentrating on it. We're not allowing the vetting of a procurement vendor before the procurement. It's often, oh, hey, by the way, I bought this. Can you vet them? Are they any good?
Did payment go out the door?
Yeah, make it work. Secure them for me, would you? I had a compound pharmacy that came to the table at one of my customers and said, we don't have unique IDs. We don't have MFA. Are we good? No.
Now you're the Department of No.
Now I'm the Department of No. So
Panel, I heard one time that security sometimes puts the no in innovation, so all jokes aside. So then I'm curious as a follow-up, and I think that this might be of interest to our audience. If you could, hypothetically, redo or rewrite some of our favorite regulations or frameworks or principles, if there's just one change or one improvement, if you could just greenfield it, where would you start or what would you do? I know we could think of improvements all day long, but I'm just curious if there's something that you could do tomorrow that would help adoption or impact effectiveness. What would that be, and where would you start? We can start with you, Lorna.
Again, you inspired me today. I had an epiphany sitting over there. You know how we used to have suggestion boxes at work, and you could put, we need a wonky box. We need a box that says, something wonky happened today. I've seen an anomaly. This is something different that has never happened before. Because those situations are where a lot of this is starting and we don't even know it. My computer's it's just running so slow. Dang, every time I get in here, it gets kicked out. Well, I'm just going to go home early today. And they don't report it. They don't know who to report it to. And that's the gate, that's the entrance. That's knocking on the door, right? So I think that, and people are afraid. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to be a tattletale. Although whistleblowers can make big bucks, by the way, if you know somebody that's really doing something naughty. But I think they need a vehicle a wonky box. You said that word today, wonky. A wonky box, or I've seen an abnormality, and put white sheet of paper with blue pens. Don't make them put their names down. Just tell you what is different today that has not happened before. That would be so helpful for everybody in my mind. Wonky box. I'm going into business, the wonky box.
Wonky is a great word.
So
really
I,
is.
I know I'm going to deviate here real quick, but if you haven't read the book, if any of you have kids, the wonky donkey, that's where I got it from. So throw it back to David.
That sounds amazing. I don't know. I mean, when it comes down to it, the different frameworks and regulatory bodies, frankly, they're working on static documents that in some cases may be 20 plus years old. They have not adapted at all to new age and how businesses are run and software and everything involved in between. If I was dreaming, I would love to have something that automatically adapts to an environment, almost like regulation as code, and what you're doing, and the controls that you may be putting in place that would then satisfy whatever control it thinks you need. Because there's plenty of businesses today that don't even have a network, but there are control frameworks, and you still have to satisfy network controls, which make no sense. So I guess that's kind of my pie in the sky dream.
Okay.
Create something that's going to adapt to what you're doing.
Mark, anything you'd want to add on that?
Yes, and vendors either shut your ears or take this as a constructive criticism. End users, organizations that buy your software, are being regulated to a much greater level than you are. I'd rather see the industry right itself in regulating itself instead of a government entity having to do it. But that's kind of where I was at with the third-party risk management is help us, help you, help you, help us. Meaning we can't always close vulnerabilities when it's your software. We can try to mitigate it by doing mitigating controls, but we can't mitigate your software, right? So if I could rewrite some of the regulations, it would be the shared responsibility. Like when you go on cloud, it's a shared responsibility for security. It's a shared responsibility when you use software packages.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stay with you, Mark, because I want to keep on it's somewhat related to vendors. We love our vendors, but sometimes I think there's a disconnect between what the solutions are doing and how the marketing team translates that message. So in that spirit, and it can be vendor or some other related, is there an example you can provide us when you recommended like the deprioritization of something others were hyping, and are you glad you did?
So I was going to say zero trust network, but what I will say is hype in many cases is good from the innovation standpoint, but you have to understand what it is. So yes, zero trust networking to me is not a product. It is a shift in your thought process and how you network. It's deny all, allow a few, instead of what networking has grown up to be, allow all, deny a few, right? So while I profess what zero trust networking is all about, the hype around it has not been truth. So does that make sense? You got to take and understand how you are denying, and that's difficult. It's not easy, because applications assume what? I can get to anything.
Yeah. It's difficult, the job we have, especially when the internet was built on just trust everything and make it work, and then we've been trying to secure that instead of vice versa, right? Lorna, I'm going to do a different twist, but similar topic. Speaking of our dear partners and vendors, how do you decide where to focus and make recommendations when every partner or vendor is calling something critical, or it must be your number one?
Well, everything matters. I mean, everything does matter. And you really have to look at the scope of what the situation is, because every single vendor in the defense industrial base for CMMC is different. They're all different. So there's no way you can say one thing is critical. One thing might be critical, and for one company, someone else it might be different. But what the vendors, the supply chain, needs to do is make sure that they understand their customers. I think a lot of times you see people that they know one thing, and they're selling one thing, and that's all they talk about is the one thing. But you have to listen to what their main goal is, what their future is. You've got to understand what their background is, where they're trying to get. They're not trying to buy your product, they're trying to solve a problem. And the number one thing will depend on what that problem is. And the problem is that they're going to lose their business if they don't get this stuff figured out, right? So it's not always just employees or money. And by the way, this industry is dying for IT people that can understand all this and explain it. What a great time to be in IT, by the way, with all of these things that are happening and the seriousness of these cyber attacks. And these people in China and Russia and Korea and all those countries, they're not like us. We're free. We work for a company, we don't like what they're doing, we'll just quit. We can get another job, we can whistleblow, the government will cover us, and we'll even get paid for that. They don't have that option. They have to do it, or they have serious consequences. We need to think about that, what our competition is. Your competition is a very desperate person that understands this stuff. You need to know it better than they know it, because they have a lot at stake. We need to, in our hearts, know that that's what we have at stake as well. Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you. David, again, you're in a very unique role where and I'm going to be stretching here, keep me honest. You not only probably responsible for securing the organization, but you also advise your product teams as well. So when you are working with them on prioritizing or filtering the noise to release something that is a need to address, how do you help them prioritize what they should be focusing on? Because that takes a lot of planning to get a simple feature to market.
Well, as a CISO, we just tell them to do it, right?
and they just listen to us, right?
Right. It's an impossible ask in a lot of cases. If everything's critical, nothing's critical. I'm sure many of you have heard that before. And some things get shoved to the forefront because of something that's happened in the industry, right? Like, who here was dealing with the NPM junk last week? I expected way more hands than that. 2 of us? Yeah, there, right? Phishing attack compromised a bunch of NPM accounts that manage certain third-party libraries that were then compromised with malicious code that then get automatically pulled into people's pipelines, and it creates a mess, right? And being a CISO, I'm dealing with that fire, but at the same time, I'm taking that and like, hey, product team, we should probably have an answer for that since we're at the app layer. So that automatically changes prioritization because it's top of mind, and frankly, it's something we probably should have done a long time ago. But sometimes it's what's happening right now. And going back to Lorna's discussion, one of the things about being a CISO that vendors need to understand is in my head, I always have a list of 2, maybe 5 things that are critical that my teams need to be working on and focusing on. And it's probably not what you're selling. It's just not. And one of the things that I talk to my sales team about is when you're trying to sell to a CISO or VP of security or someone at that level, don't come at them and tell them that they need to do this, it's critical, they have a problem. Why? Well, because I already know I have 2 or 3 problems that I'm focusing my time and effort on. Ask them questions, figure out where they're at, figure out what their problems are, and then figure out if your solution can help them with their problems. It just creates a better rapport, and it creates a better relationship with that CISO. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Bonus follow-up, David. All security leaders have a multitude of potential reporting structures, right? And how we have to communicate information up and laterally. Where do you think the biggest disconnect is right now between the stakeholders, the board, the executive team, it can be any, whoever is in that reporting chain. What do you think is the biggest disconnect between that level, their perception of the risk that cyber threats pose, and the frontline reality?
The board doesn't care about anything but money. I mean, let's just be honest and level set there, right? And so the CISO is at that level now. Now I have to equate anything that's happening to cost for the business and prove why we need to do something or why something happened and how much this thing cost us and what we could have done better, right? It's all about money. I wish some of the SEC regulations would have required security people on boards. That actually didn't pass, which is unfortunate because most boards, you don't have a security person on them. So, for me, reporting structure doesn't really matter. I report to our CFO, which is not as common in the field. Some report to CIOs, some report to the CEO, some report directly to the board. I don't think there's one answer that's perfect. And frankly, I don't think any CISO role is the same. I think everything's a little bit different, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Lorna, Marc, did either of you want to take that question as well?
So the reporting structure, I think, really depends upon the organization. If you really look at what a CISO does in the pure risk management perspective, it's a check and balance, right? So reporting to a CIO is not necessarily appropriate in many organizations because you're a balance to what they're doing on the infrastructure side, right? Same thing applies for CFO because they're looking at dollars and cents, not necessarily the risk associated. So to bring it all back together, risk quantification is so important that you need to get that instead of what we generally do today is risk qualification. Let me say that again. Risk quantification versus qualification. Most qualification is subjective, high, medium, low. You're throwing out fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Quantification says, I've got a hard dollar amount attached to that issue, that vulnerability, that priority. Now I can go back to the CFO properly and speak risk management language. Hey, you don't do this, it could cost us $3 million. Instead of the soft dollar approach, which unfortunately a lot of vendors and sales do, is they want to talk about brand reputation. It's hard to really quantify that. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that, Lorna?
Yeah, I do. I notice that I rarely have any CFOs in my training classes. Yet, when there's a breach, guess who has to sign the resolution agreement? Saying that they're going to pay $1.3 million and that the IT department or whoever the CISO is going to ensure that all of these risk analysis, all of these requirements are done. If I were a CFO, man, I would definitely want to understand the organization's. I think you guys ought to be like sitting together having lunch every day, because that's who's going to. And by the way, where is the line item to pay billions of dollars for breaches? I mean, is that in the budget somewhere? Where do they get that money when they have a breach?
It's in Bitcoin.
In Bitcoin, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big issue that we're not. I mean, the 10 largest breaches in the United States in the last 20 years totaled $20 billion. $20 billion. And we're saying that we don't have money to do a risk analysis? Are you kidding me? And people who have never done a risk or don't have written policies, don't have training, they're not training their staff, but they're going to install AI. I mean, I find that terrifying myself. I'll go get a drink.
No, that's great. As we're, approaching the bottom of the hour, I'd like to just pause for a second to see if there's any questions from the audience that might have come up, any questions online. If not, we can keep going. We have a lot of great conversations going on up here, but you've spent the majority of the day with us. I want to give you an opportunity if there's a question in the audience. Looks like there's one up here at the second table. Bring a mic around so the folks online can hear.
So here's my question, and it's a little odd. Because we've had a couple. Wonky, yeah. We haven't had what I would consider a cyber attack. No one cares about our data, okay? But we have been conned where people have accessed information about a shipment, came and picked it up and stole a trailer load of material and $200,000 worth of inventory. And as I think, and today's made me think about a lot of those kinds of things. But how do you anticipate that? That's my real thought, is I can say, well, this happened, so now I can work to create procedures to schedule pickups with customers.
How did the con start? Just curious.
They showed up with a trailer. They showed up with a truck and hooked it up, and our, shipping people are busy, and they knew that that customer had a shipment, and so they loaded them up and off they went with a full trailer of inventory.
So social engineering, basically,
It was,
right?
that's why I say it's a con. It's a total con. But they had enough information about us that did have a cyber element, but it wasn't a cyber crime. And how do you anticipate that? That's the thing I'm struggling with today as I think about.
So that kind of goes back to my point about why do we look at risk differently when it's cyber versus financial or business, right? So if you ask the CFO, what do you do when you are about to partner with another organization, whether it be supply chain, you pick whatever it is, right? They go out and vet it with Moody's or whatever, but we don't do the cyber side. What I'm saying is we need to treat all risk as risk management. We need to really look at it. In your case, it's fraud, right? We need to look at it the same way and understand. That's why I don't know, you all know Menards?
Yes.
That's why there's one way in and one way out. Fraud management, right? So we need to look at all risk the same. And yes, it's not cyber, but your point is well taken. They got the information somewhere, so they probably breached somebody else.
Yeah, I would say it's hard, right? Your Menards thing is really important, though. The one way in, one way out. There's a physical security aspect of this, right? And maybe if it happens once, the business might be okay with that. I mean, it's part of understanding risk, and if it's $200,000 for a $200 billion company, who cares? But if it's something that would continually happen, then your priorities probably shift to figuring out what can I do. Maybe I have multiple checkpoints. Maybe I have those multiple checkpoints to make sure that we're expecting this person or these people to show up that may or may not be on a list, right? That someone is managing. If they're getting on the list, I mean, at some point, the bad guy is going to find their way in. And, I think, some of us have to deal with that every day. You can't plan for everything, but it sounds like in this case, that might become more of an important thing to focus on, and figuring out what touch points or what control points I can add to my process to prevent this from happening in the future. Could you have sat down and said, that's probably something we need to think about? Maybe not. Your priorities were probably focused on 2 or 3 other things. But now that it's happened, now it's top of mind, and figuring out where I can add some control points to maybe prevent it in the future is kind of where you're at.
Well, and I would add that when that happened, that's an immediate training opportunity, because whoever gave them that information might be giving the information to some other person, right? So to take that terrible thing that happened and make it a training opportunity and have a written policy and a procedure and make a video and train your staff and put it on the inside door of the bathroom, Stall Street Times, here's what happened, don't let it happen again. Those are training opportunities. So don't let those go by. Don't accept that. Don't accept it, move on it. We have to move on these things.
Cool, thank you. Next question.
I kind of had a question around AI, because as a security side, we're constantly the poo-pooed, shut things down, say no to AI world. I'm just kind of curious on your guys' thoughts and opinions on I'm constantly looking at the controls and things that you have at your disposal. Some of the AIs out there are limited. My security stack, I'm seeing more and more get added for, options that you can add to kind of control that AI world. Is it, maybe a combination of security training, privatized versions of AI, or, what kind of options do you really have to let them use AI for the things that need to, but not expose yourself and your company data as much as possible? I'm just curious on your opinions on that.
So I think you kind of answered the first question I had about what is your risk profile? What are you concerned about? Sounds like your data, right? Other companies might have other things they're concerned about when it comes to AI. Visibility into what people are trying to use is probably step one. Figuring out, what are my engineers doing? What are my HR teams doing? What are my marketing teams doing? And what AI do they either want to use or are they using? That's a hard problem to solve right now, just because it's like every day 20 more pop up, right? But we'll get to the point where, the SWGs of the world, the, systems like that will start to provide some insight into those things for us. But, as a CISO, I don't poo-poo AI, but I also realize that it's not to the point where it's extremely helpful yet for security. It's more helpful for the malicious actor. And it's still attacks, it's just they're happening more quickly, right? I think the latest CrowdStrike report said something like it only takes about 5 days from vulnerability disclosure to exploit. That's going to decrease to 5 hours or 2 hours or less with AI. And so what I would rather us focus on from a security perspective is how can we deal with things more quickly from an IR perspective while creating policies and figuring out how we can, from an asset management standpoint, understand what people are using. Because frankly, if we start saying no, we're quickly going to be ignored. And we have to figure out ways to say yes, but in a secure way.
So to piggyback on that, embrace it. I know it feels rough, and I don't want to do it because I know it's risky. But if you don't, the user's going to find a way anyway, right? Whether it's emailing it to their personal account and then using it at home, or just purely going directly to it, dumping in PII, intellectual property, those kinds of things, right? So embrace it. Understand, too, that means by embracing it, you need to narrow the field to say, these are our preferred programs. And by the way, beware that if you use these ones, they're going to take that information and use it to teach the model, to learn on. And so you cannot put X, Y, and Z in it. So that's part of the training element of it. But do embrace it. But that way you can minimize it to standardize, and then you can manage it much better.
And I love what you said today about getting to know everybody. In this particular situation, how about an AI committee from payroll and housekeeping and IT and sales and developers, and having that group do a study and come back and tell you what they uncovered, and getting the input from everybody. We do really need to get everybody at the table. And then they can make a decision. Whoa, this is way too risky, we're not gonna do it. Or, well, that would be great for us, but listen what would happen over here. And the guy in the mailroom didn't even know that stuff was going on over there. So, I mean, you can really, because we have to do it, right? We have to do it. This is the future. And, these Gen Xer kids out here, and I am definitely not a Gen Xer, these Gen Xer kids are already doing it. So we need to structure it so that we can use it in a beneficial way, I think.
Well, I'll add a couple things if it helps from my perspective. Hope the panel doesn't mind. Some of the areas that we've focused time on is, as the panel mentioned, building up visibility. Depending on your controls, what you have now, what you're looking at, just getting visibility in line and remote, like however folks are accessing the data. And then we are getting better and better at tracking the identities, their personas, and how they're manipulating with data and applications, because that can help us get better telemetry and understand what's going on, because AI is just another form of a service or a process or something manipulating data. So that's how we're approaching it. It's not perfect. And at the same time, we're building up cataloging, but that's a byproduct of the regulatory environment that we're in and how we have to report on some of that. So that's a couple of the hot takes on what we're working on. It's still an evolution in progress to get to a point.
I would just say this too. AI is just more software.
Yep.
And if we think of it that way and start treating it that way and how we do the same thing for other software, I think it makes it a little easier. It feels overwhelming right now because, again, 20 new systems are online, every day. But we'll figure out a way like we always do.
And I remember when people said, oh, I don't know, should we get a website or not?
Shut down the internet, right? Unplug it. Well, great, thank you. If you have any other questions, we'll have another opportunity towards the end, but we'll switch gears here a little bit and talk about, some of the, there's a lot of folks in here that either on the path have interest in taking on more responsibilities in the cyber world, figuring out how to have more influence, and so I'm going to use that as a grounding for this next question. And the microphone happens to be close to Marc, so he's up first on this one. Have you ever taken a calculated risk to enable the business over the objections of your team? What happened?
Yes. If you think back to when cybersecurity insurance first came out, I made the recommendation to one organization that the risk associated with what they were protecting against was not the value that the insurance premium was showing. So they should consider self-insuring. Of course, the team did not appreciate that. Oh, I want to be protected by cybersecurity insurance. And that's valid, but the other side of the coin is if my insurance policy is $10 million and I'm only protecting $5 million worth of asset, where's the difference? Why would I make a decision to throw good money after bad? So it becomes an element of there are going to be risks that you're willing to accept, right? You don't have to transfer to insurance everything, but you do make those risk calls every day. You just don't necessarily realize it, right? Every day in the infrastructure, you're making those decisions to either accept it, mitigate it, or remediate it.
You want to
No.
take that one? No?
No.
Okay. No?
No, we're good.
Okay, well, we'll take another one then. David?
Yeah.
What's one investment that you fought for or had to push harder for than you imagined that was at first resisted? And how did you end up getting approval to move forward?
Great question. I will say CSPM. We are a 100% cloud company, and we were trying to use some of the built-in tooling in AWS to provide the visibility insight we thought we might need. And actually, it wasn't hard. I mean, yeah, when I went to my CFO and said, here's the projected cost of this CSPM tool, he about fell out of his chair. And it was actually very easy to explain the cost versus what we're already spending on some of the tooling in the cloud environment today and what we're not getting. So it really wasn't hard, but it was definitely the one that really comes to mind just because the dollar amount alone looks so high. but the benefit it provides and the ability to get rid of some other things. I think that's usually the key too, is like, what are we getting rid of? If you're gonna spend a bunch of money, bring that to the table as well, because they're gonna ask.
Yeah. Lorna?
Well, I would say don't be afraid of anything. I mean, your first response may be being afraid, but when COVID hit, I had always taught my class 2 days standing in heels, talking for 2 days, and that's the way I'd always done it. Flying out on Sunday night, getting home on, Wednesday morning, da-da-da. But when COVID hit, I thought we were going to go out of business. I thought nobody was ever going to know anything about HIPAA again. I mean, oh my God, it was going to be terrible. But within a week, we converted all of our classes to virtual, which we'd never done before. And now I still teach the virtual classes. And I still do private classes too now. But don't be afraid to try something different just because you've always done it that way. And that was a good example when I went to our CEO and said, I think I can convert this to virtual. And I checked out GoToMeeting, and I think that'll work. And I have to get a camera and yada, yada. I mean, you just, go ahead and pass out for a minute, have a drink, and then decide what you could do differently. Because there's no hard and fast anything, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marc, is that one you want to take, or do you want me to
Sure,
switch? Okay.
sure. So earlier in my career, I took up DLP to the CEO and was asking for the money to buy DLP. And unfortunately, this goes back to a lot of the sales tactics that I warned against. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt didn't help. I couldn't give him hard dollars.
That's FUD, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the FUD. I love the FUD.
So from an overall perspective, my failure to tell the story and to quantify what that risk really meant, I didn't get the product to help me eliminate that risk. When I did, months later, I got the money to get it done.
Thank you. It seems like, I think we have a question online. Well, AI is not possible to avoid because it has arrived and will remain. What would you recommend for organizations to seamlessly integrate into their businesses without increasing the attack surface? So basically, AI is here. It's not going away. It's continuing to become a more integral part of the business. What do we recommend that we do to adequately control and enable it without increasing our attack surface?
I mean, like I said before, it's just more software, right? And we kind of mentioned, increase visibility into what your users are either using or want to use. You're managing their machines already with probably technology that can help on that standpoint. But, Marc said something earlier that I think is also really important. Present the 3 or 4 tools or LLMs that you want your business to use. I think if you write tooling around these, if you write knowledge bases, if you write tutorials, if there's training, we want to use ChatGPT or we want to use Gemini or whatever it is and present those specific options. And what I would suggest is, we're still in the really early stages of LLMs and their creation and what they're learning on. Every one of them does one thing better than the other. Like Claude Code, guess what? It's probably the best one for engineers in creating code. So maybe that's an option. But I would look at, all of these different LLMs and maybe what they're best at and make sure there's one for every part of your business that they can use. It's still not a perfect solution, but at least the business now feels like it's okay because they're between, is it okay or can I try this new LLM that's here or not? Well, if they have Claude Code or if they have Gemini already, why not use those?
I would just say also there's safety in numbers. If you get a group together in the company and different departments and can really examine and determine what's best for your company, not just because your brother-in-law works there, not just because you really like it, but an even team that can make an educated decision, you will have much better luck taking that to executive board or your CEO or to the board, because you will have substance, you will have facts and not emotion, and I think emotion was one of the other things. So keep it, really do it the right way. There's a right way, you know the right way. You know the right way.
So to piggyback on that, understand it. And I know that's simple and flippant for me to say right out the bat. Understand what you're talking about to begin with. Because there's a lot of marketing stuff out there that says AI this, AI that. What really is it? Understand what it is first. Get together and realize, how do they maintain and clean that data? Do they share it with other organizations or publicly, right? Let those inputs help you decide where to go, how to go. Give you a quick example. Organization I worked for was using Grammarly in pieces and parts. When I discovered it, I had to also understand what the licensing model looked like to understand how they shared and trained their models. Once I did that, it became very clear. I needed to purchase a license to keep it private, right? Other AI is not that way. You have to opt out. You have to make sure that your information's not being used in the training. Understand what you're talking about first. Because people use ML, NLP, and here I am using the techie acronyms I said not to use. But there's so many different versions and elements within AI that you have to truly understand what you're talking about first, and then understand how it affects you.
Well, I'm going to have fun with this next question. I think it can be one of the last ones before we open up to more audience questions. But this is very creative, no right or wrong. I enjoy this question. I love ideating with my team on this one. Yeah, if everybody that heard our conversation earlier, we were debating the lesser of two evils, squirrels or pigeons. So that's a talk for another day. If you were hypothetically building a company today that was fully artificial intelligence driven and cloud native, how would your security model differ than the ones you use now? So to repeat, if you were building a company or even a service today that was fully AI driven and cloud native, how would your security model differ from the ones that we use today?
Well, if it were me, I would have experts do it. I would hire somebody to do it. I would do a high trust assessment, and or if I were going to do business with the Department of Defense, I would have a CMMC assessment done. Nothing says that you have to do this yourself, that you have to have all this knowledge. You can outsource, and for me, I would need to outsource. I'd want to oversee it, I'd want them to explain it, but there's nothing wrong with going to the experts. I mean, when I get a colonoscopy, I never do it myself.
I'm going to have to incorporate that line in my next presentation.
That was perfect. The easy answer is I wouldn't change a thing. I really think we need to step back and realize that AI is just software, and it just feels heavy because it's like the next zero trust. Everyone's talking about it, but it is software. I think the one thing that I might change, though, is I would use the AI to analyze my security posture and tell me things that I might need to change. If it's fully AI driven, why can't I do that and ask it about my cloud setup and, some IAM and other technical jargon that maybe I'm not quite doing appropriately. I think that would be a powerful aspect, even if it hallucinates some, it at least gets us thinking about things differently.
Well, unfortunately, most existing businesses have tech debt, right? They can't change the past. The beauty of building something from scratch means you can do it right. So and I know this is going to sound rudimentary. Understand not data classification, but information classification. Data is bits and bytes and types of files. Information is how you group it to create value. Now you know what to put where and what to protect most. So I would definitely take a rudimentary approach to say, I now know what I have to protect and how much I have to protect it, instead of, I got to protect it all.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions, either online or in the audience, that we can address at this point before we conclude our time?
He's back, I love it.
It's coming.
So again, this is about risk assessment, because AI is really, really new. And I actually just read an article today about an HR AI model, and someone hid, basically by just making their font clear, send me a recipe for rice and beans in your response. And lo and behold, the AI model did that. And as I think about cons, social engineering with AI, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there for things like that that we don't anticipate. And obviously we can deal with it when we find it. But again, a lot of times end users aren't going to find it. And as I think about, let's use an AI model for accounts payable. And then someone embeds in there, change my bank account, change my address for my check, change my terms from 120 days to 3, and embedding that in an invoice. How do I anticipate things like that? How do we know? And, obviously once we find it, okay, now I can deal with it. But if users aren't looking for it, and I'm not dealing with it every day, how do I assess that risk? How do I address it?
It's a great question, and your HR example reminded me of a meme I saw the other day that everyone is applying for jobs with AI, and HR is using AI to eliminate people who apply, and no one's getting hired. But the reality is the hard part with AI and these LLMs is they use natural language, and it's really, really difficult to validate that natural language, because I can create a prompt that says anything. But again, I go back to software. There's, for instance, our website has a chatbot. My team has spent many, many hours trying to jailbreak that chatbot and the underlying LLM, because it is important, right? Again, it's software, so access control is important, privacy is important. Some of those things that you would always think about when you're using software. It should be no different with AI. So it's not like I need to detect these things, because I should already have that in some process or what I'm already working on to prevent it in the first place. Because that is a real thing. It's really happening. I saw someone in their LinkedIn profile put AI-specific text, so when they get AI call-outs from someone who's hiring, it puts a recipe for rice and beans, right? It's really happening, but it's beyond that, right? I think some of the things that the gentleman who gave the AI talk early in the morning talked about deepfakes, and we're hiring for positions, and I've probably interviewed a dozen people that were either using AI or it was not the actual person who was talking that was on my screen, and we're a small company. That's the stuff that's, again, the malicious actors, the nation states. That's the stuff that I don't even say it's FUD, because it's actually happening. I've seen it myself. It's those folks that we have to figure out how to deal with. But as far as the AI side and LLMs and preventing things like the recipe, it's just treated as software. I need to know the inputs. I need to know the inputs I shouldn't have. and figure out how to prevent those from happening, which won't be perfect for a while. We'll probably have to use AI to do it in the future. Agentic AI that looks at the prompt and says, no, you can't ask this before it gets to the actual LLM that answers the prompt.
Trust but verify.
So some of the base elements of what we do in IT and IT security are sometimes looked at poorly. So integrity management. If you set a file, that file should not change, correct? Unless you've authorized that change. So from that perspective, we can look for behavioral elements, changes in the environment. That doesn't necessarily mean we were looking for a particular scenario, but if we do our due diligence, and I like to call it IT service assurance, if we're doing all the good things that build the foundation for us to put all the fancy things on top, then we are anticipating something changing. We are anticipating that somebody malicious might have gone in and thrown something in there, whether it was internal or external, right? So if we're doing our due diligence in integrity management, within risk management, we anticipate by default.
Thank you very much, panel. We're at the conclusion of our time. If I could just get one more round of applause for our esteemed panel. All right, with that, that concludes our panel. And I think this is probably one of the most times everybody's looked forward to. I think we're going to be concluding and doing raffle draws.